I'm here with Scott Philiben from CiES, and we've known you for the work you've done with fuel gauging and the like, but you guys have kind of branched out. Tell me what's new.
Well, way back when we decided to come up with a new sensor for measuring fuel level, we really identified, in fact, the patent identifies that there were multiple different things that we could use this for, because basically what we were doing is building an intelligent angular position sensor. And so we've had some hits about utilizing it for flap control and for yaw damper on the Cirrus jet, but no, and for throttle position, but no one's really taken us up on it. A good friend of mine is working the program at Aerospace.
Okay.
And he knew of the capabilities. And I said, you know, I'd really like a shot at doing the throttle for an electric aircraft. I said, we have the mean time to failure on our fuel senders is over 90,000 hours. And we felt that with a dual sensor, we could achieve a 1 in a billion chance, which is what you want for throttle, level A in a Part 25, but that level of...
pretty critical control system.
Exactly. And things come together. I have a really good software team, and they're gelling together. They're really enjoying this because, electronics and electrical power of some sort is going to be the future as aviation moves into further into this century. So they feel like they're part of something that's evolving, and it's worked out really well. I'm really happy with the result. It's everything that we thought it would be from a feel standpoint. It's still in a prototype stage, but it's really quite well done. And I'm saying that not as it's my product, but I'm really proud of what my people came up with.
Well, you obviously wouldn't put the energy into it, energy and resources into it, if you didn't believe in it. Where do you see your initial implementations?
The electric aircraft component is really the first application, but we've gotten a lot of interest. It was pretty interesting and very nice. I made just a small post on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago, and very nicely Jack Pelton at AEA joined in and said, hey, great work from one of the most innovative companies in general aviation. And when
Jack knows one or two things about this, yes.
Yeah, so that gained us some pretty large exposure. We've had a lot of interest, not only, and I believe it's application in electric aircraft, but really it's a fly-by-wire system. So if there were a FADEC or there were some other sort of component to be attached to, it really is a throttle that could apply a fly-by-wire in a solution and a price point that's acceptable for general aviation.
The electric revolution is a big storm, lack of a better way to put it. People don't really know how to deal with it yet. There's a number of problems to solve. We've got a lot of the motor technology nailed down, power delivery and power storage. That's two different things entirely.
Yes.
But one of the things I haven't heard addressed much is just some of the differentiation in control systems. So that's got to be right up your alley.
Yeah, it is quite fun. There is a lot of discussion. I mean, you're looking at, where do you put a terminal point? We deal in fuel. Where do you put a terminal point where, your battery capacity is getting down to a point where, the motor is softening, so you're not being able to use as much of the normal range as you would in a ground-based vehicle. There's a lot of discussions about that, or it could be related to the throttle where we attach a servo to it, and it starts bringing you back to a power level that keeps you flying, but it lets you know that you might want to find a suitable landing place. Even though I'm very certain. I'm absolutely certain the bioaerospace is equipped with a parachute, but that's a method of last resort.
I'm well aware of them.
Yeah.
I was actually one of the test pilots way back when on the BRS development days, so I've been under that chute a dozen times.
Wow.
So
that's
it was fun at the time. It's interesting what's come out of one crazy idea and turned into something that's become part of the normal scenario in aviation. Maybe a path you may be following.
Yeah. Yes.
There you go. I'd like to go back real quick, though. When your technology and what your efforts right now are based on the work that you did pioneering a more accurate way to gauge fuel quantity, which is, we know in a variety of aircraft, some of which I have owned, is a crapshoot. It's bad out there, and for some reason or another, when you look at accident records and you see fuel exhaustion, and you see fuel exhaustion from people who should know better, and oh yeah, the gauge is said quarter full, and things of that nature, there's no excuse for the fact that it hasn't been given more attention than it has. So when you put time and effort into it, I'm excited about it, because one of the things we have to do and have done for 25 years of Aero-News is read accident reports every morning. And that's getting pretty unimpressive. When you see the same thing over and over again, you begin to wonder. But you're based on technology, you started there. What was the impetus there? How did you come to those kind of investigative processes to get that kind of product?
Yeah, we did. We did spend a lot of time looking at legacy fuel senders, and we started and then we looked at them in a plexiglass tank on a boat. That was something would generate a certain amount of random motion on a vehicle that we could observe. And we started looking at that the problems weren't as people were perceiving them, but the problems that we saw were high latency, corrosion related to water in the fuel, which is also a boating issue. Latency and corrosion tend to produce a sticky mechanism. The sticky mechanism, you get to the fuels. Yeah. You get to the fuels, and the fuels have higher level aromatics that really aren't prevalent in autogas, so erosion of the of printed inks that they use typically. You could see all those problems, but and we were trying a bunch of other technologies, but we saw, geez, if we could keep it simple, we could also prove to the FAA it was a very easy transition to go from one type of float to another type of float that was safer. But the big issues were those latency, corrosion, and making the realization that the float doesn't float. It really needs to rest on the fuel as it's dropping down. That was you say it out loud, but everybody think it just pops up. No, it's really that the fuel will leave it hanging up in the air because of the corrosion at the pivot, and then it drops down. Vibration that's normally inherent in aircraft will drop the float down. And so used to see these hellaciously large floats in aircraft, and you go, well, it must be a buoyancy issue we're going to overcome. No, it was there to keep the float on the surface of the fuel. But as you looked at those things, and it was like, oh, we could solve all of these small problems, and just really observing it was the big clue to making it better. But the great thing, and I think we mentioned last time, when we're up probably 20,000 senders over last year, we have 90,000 fuel senders in the field, and we yet have a fuel exhaustion or starvation event, and it's 10 years running.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know right there, doesn't it?
I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, there's an idiot out there who will still do it.
There will be.
Aviation has its share of those, but holy smokes, that's an impressive stat. I was not aware at all. That is an incredibly impressive stat, especially if you take a look at how frequent those incidents are these days. And more important, just the fact that most of the people don't really get down to, okay, it just wasn't the pilot dummy, but there were causal factors that led to the pilot being a dummy.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things at a long talk many years ago with Jim Hall, who at the time was head of NTSB, and he remember saying something along the lines, I just want to see one accident one day with one cause. It's all these causal factors. He says, and frankly, he didn't think it ever existed. It's just, there's always a million different reasons, or a lot of different reasons, reaching to a point of critical balance that becomes the overriding factor that creates the accident, or the accident chain, I should say.
Yeah, we did some work. We're interested. You become a student once you start looking at these things. You become a student. We built up a whole accident chain related to fuel-related events, and at the point that we could break it all the time was actually having accurate fuel level.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, you've had an impact, and yet the sensor technology, as you noted, is now leading into other avenues. I like the fact that you're targeting the next generation. I think that's going to be pretty cool, to say the least. At the same time, there are unique new power systems that are going to need unique new solutions. I'm working with, I do a lot of flight tests, and I'm working with 3 projects in the quasi AEM field, or hope to be, you know how that goes. And we're looking at fuel cell technologies in a big way. And technically, by the time you get to the throttle, it's electric.
Yeah.
It doesn't start that way. But it's going to be interesting to see what people do down the line to be able to stay on top of that scenario as well.
Yeah, it'll be...
I meant to get your card for 1 or 2 of these guys.
Yeah, no, once you've cleared out that area and you have and there's a commercial product available, as you know, the aviation world, especially if it's proven, especially if it has the reliability, especially if it meets a price point, you really will have captured the market.
Interesting. What did it take for you? I know one of the first things you do to become truly successful is volume, and volume means getting OEM acceptance. How difficult a road is that these days?
I have a long-standing reputation in the industry, and I've helped out a lot of organizations and programs over my career, and I've been very fortunate.
Including 1 or 2 who didn't think they had a problem?
Yeah,
I won't mention any names.
Yeah, no, and I seem to have the ability to be the guy with the hammer.
Oh, there you go.
The old guy with the hammer. Here's your problem. So I have some organizations who, it would take a whole heck of a lot more, but there are some organizations out there who really turn to us to come up with unique solutions for them, and there are things that we are working on that I'm not talking about that are on that level. So when we get the attitude, and I tell my employees, my job is to make their job easier, and that's our attitude, and we have a really good esprit de corps, and we're really good at matching up to other people's engineering departments, so it looks seamless, like they did the work. And we could name multiple projects like that are things that we did, but you wouldn't know, and we're not talking about.
Interesting. 2 of the themes that have been talked about quite a bit among the various people we've interviewed over the last couple of days. One has been the supply chain issue dilemma that is facing much of the industry right now. And the other is the hiring scenario, whereby finding 1, people who are trained properly, and 2, people who are trained properly who actually want to work. What's your experience been?
Supply chain was scary. We actually got taken on purchasing necessary chips to move forward for our sensor to a very large extent. The FBI is involved with that. And
oh,
that
my
person,
goodness.
It's he's stolen over $3 or $4 million out of our industry, out of the aviation industry, through fraud, that he had available parts on the open market. That being said, I did secure, and I have more than my share of position sensor things, which is going to be another thing moving forward. If you want to use the same technology as us, I pretty much have a lion's share of the free chips that are out there. Because the same chip is the one that's keeping Ford trucks from reaching the Ford, Chevy, Dodge trucks from reaching dealerships. These position sensors are endemic within the automotive industry. People-wise, that's a real funny thing. It's great. This is great that we're all talking to one another at a trade show, and in our community in Bend, Oregon, we finally got together, business leaders 2 weeks ago. And someone walked up to me and said, you're a celebrity and a story in town. And I said, why is that? And they said, people talk about the interview process that they have with CiES, and they feel like we sell the company more than they have to sell themselves. And that we're more telling them about the advantages and the benefits of coming to work for us. We don't seem to be having the same challenges as other people, but we're now starting to ramp up and hire more people, and we're seeing that the job market is quite tight. But we've been very successful up to this point in getting phenomenal people who are just expanding every day. I'm really just like the Pied Piper. That's a bad reference because that means my employees are rats. But other than that, yeah. Oops, yeah.
There you go. Scott, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the chance to catch up with you. It'd be very interesting to catch up with you every now and then, see how progress has gone. I'm particularly interested in seeing what you're doing with the throttle project in particular. Please keep us up to date and make sure anything newsworthy gets sent our way over here to Aero News. And more important than anything else, go out and innovate. This is how we keep an industry alive. This is how we get ahead. This is how we defeat the last 2.5 years of, okay, what did we just get hit by? And more important, this is how we keep aviation alive. We appreciate all of it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
News Network's coverage of the 65th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Introducing the new ELT 345 from Artex. This emergency locator transmitter, or ELT, boasts an industry-low price, while providing the same quality and performance on which the Artex brand was built. GPS data is embedded within the first emergency transmission and provides search and rescue personnel with the aircraft location within 100 meters in less than a minute. Take to the skies knowing you have the highest performing and reliable equipment on board. View our selection of ELTs and safety products at www.artex.com. Artex, your best last chance.